Hello and greetings. My name is Samantha Power, and I only wish that my schedule had allowed me to be with you in person this evening. I say that because although I had thought that my personal list of heroes was complete, you have forced me to make space for one more, or, more accurately, for a whole room full of heroes. Because everyone gathered there with you tonight is a champion in the effort to save lives amid the starkest human catastrophe in this century. Accordingly, I congratulate your president, Dr. Salul, your conference chair, Dr. Azraq, and all those associated with the Syrian American Medical Society and with this event. Your conference theme is Medicine Without Borders, which could not be more apt because for almost 3 years, the borders of Syria, external and internal, have been used as a barrier to the delivery of life-giving medicines, hospital supplies, warm clothing, drinkable water, and food. It is outrageous when a government uses Scud missiles, barrel bombs, and chemical weapons against its own people, and does so with the clear intent of terrorizing non-combatants. It is outrageous as well when the very means of survival are denied to civilians as part of a military strategy. The doctrine of medical neutrality during conflict dates back a century and a half. To our shame, historians may well look back a century and a half from now and say that Syria is where that doctrine was shredded. From the earliest days of the fighting, doctors were ordered not to care for the wounded and injured because the very need for treatment was considered proof of complicity with the opposition. Soon, hospitals were targeted for destruction, patients were pulled from their beds, operating rooms were turned into torture chambers, and medical personnel were killed, abducted, or forced to flee. As a result, virtually the entire healthcare system in Syria has collapsed. More than half the doctors are gone, more than 3/4 of the medical infrastructure has been damaged or destroyed, 90% of the manufacturing of medicines has ceased. In Aleppo, a city of 2 million, where once there were 5,000 doctors, there are now around 36. To the extent that there remains a glimmer of light, this society, your society, is responsible. You've raised millions of dollars to buy desperately needed medical supplies, and while others search frenetically for roads out of Syria, many of your brave physicians have found clandestine paths in. At grave risk to their own lives, they have surmounted incredible hardships to save the lives of countless others. In addition to providing care, your doctors have opened a window of visibility into a land whose leaders prefer to operate in total darkness. You've helped to tell stories that must be told, stories of too many malnourished children and of people with untreated infections, shrapnel wounds, and lost limbs, stories of not enough hospital beds, anesthetics, vaccines, or blood supplies, stories of not enough clean water and not enough fuel to boil the water that is unclean. You have reported as well on the emergence of diseases that had not been seen in years, such as polio, scarlet fever, and a skin affliction known now simply as Aleppo boil. Meanwhile, the bombs continue to fall, the shelling goes on, and the agony deepens. The UN heard recently from a man who had witnessed a massacre in Daraya and had seen 200 bodies stacked up in the local mosque. We heard from a woman who survived the chemical weapons attack in Muadamiyah and who, despite being sick herself, spent all day in the hospital helping others, many of whom could not be saved. Another woman talked about the starve or surrender policy, under which food was denied to those who would not give up, and most of those who gave up were never seen again. Just last week, the Secretary General reported on unspeakable abuses committed against children, including kidnapping, sexual violence, beatings with whips, electric shocks, and imprisonment without cause. There are times when words lose their capacity to express fully what is felt. I am by nature an optimist, but I will not try to sell you on silver linings tonight. I cannot assure you that the conflict will soon end or that the medical emergency will be over next month or the month after that. However, I can tell you that President Obama and Secretary Kerry and I could not be more deeply or passionately engaged in the search for solutions. We're pressing for a political solution in accordance with the Geneva I communique, providing for a transitional government with full executive powers based on mutual consent. Simultaneously, we're pushing here in New York at the UN Security Council and through our diplomatic contacts to permit the unfettered delivery of humanitarian aid across and within Syria's borders. We consult constantly with our allies, coordinate closely with the moderate opposition, communicate each day with humanitarian representatives, and have the bluntest of conversations with our Russian counterparts. We know that there are millions of good people who urgently need our help, and we will not rest until this tragic conflict is over and the process of healing has begun. Several thousand years ago, Syria helped to invent human civilization. The time has come to restore the standards of civilization to Syria. To make that happen, I pledge my own best efforts and will continue to pray for the safety of your doctors, the success of this society of heroes, and the survival and recovery of the Syrian people. Thank you once again for everything that you are doing. Good night and blessings to you all.